This is part 20 in a series of videos in which I'm attempting to repair this. It's an HP9830A desktop calculator. In the previous videos I've got as far as repairing numerous electronic faults. I've replaced over 100 ICs, repaired the power supply, and I ended up with an issue where the main ROM board was failing. There were various ROMs on here that just don't work. I made a jig to read the data out of this and compared it against the original patent and the code I downloaded for the emulator, and they didn't match. And also the card was very slow and the data it gave varied if you changed the speed that you accessed it. And I'm not talking here a few nanoseconds, it was 10 or 20 microseconds it needed to allow the data to settle. Which is obviously far too long in a machine like this. So I got around to designing a replacement ROM card for it, and I showed that in the last video. I've programmed the ROM with the code from the emulator, and I plugged this into the test jig in the last video and tested it, and it seemed to work fine. As you can see, I've now got it plugged into the machine and it actually works, so it gives me a good tool for trying to sort out this machine. The machine still doesn't run. I didn't actually expect it to. There are quite a few faults remaining that I know about, and I'm sure quite a few that I don't. In fact, it's getting to the point where the amount of time I'm spending on this is becoming a bit of an issue, and I don't know what's happened to this machine. I'm starting to think that maybe it was powered up in the UK with the voltage set to 120 volts. There's just so many failed components in here. There's well over half of them have failed. But I thought I'd do a quick catch-up video and show where I got to with it. The machine is getting much further now than it was now that I have the new ROM card installed. It's actually executing code to a much greater degree and getting much further through it than it was before. So what I'll do, I'll point the camera at the logic analyzer and we'll have a look at the progress and see how far through the code it gets. While you're watching this, if you are familiar with these machines, then any advice and help repairing this would be appreciated. It is, as you know, quite a complex machine, so the fault finding process is quite tedious, and as I say, it is getting quite difficult to justify the time I'm spending on this. Okay, so I'll move the camera and we'll look at the data from the analyzer. Okay, so looking at the analyzer, this is the portion of code that we're interested in at the moment. When the machine boots up, it jumps up to the beginning of this portion of code. This is the start of the monitor, and the first thing it does is it checks to see how much RAM's installed, and once it's done that, it jumps through to various subroutines that are supposed to initialize the machine. So currently I have the analyzer set to trigger at this location, and it's the point where it gets to the instruction just before the first jump to a subroutine. So I'll arm the analyzer and then power up the machine, and we can see that we have actually jumped and captured the address that we're looking for. The way I have the analyzer configured is in the trigger I'm looking at the M register address. That's the address that the HP is putting onto its address bus, its memory address bus, and I'm also monitoring the address bus in the microcode generator. And the way I've got it configured, if we look back at the waveform, is the EA value in the microcode, which is the blue one at the top, is the start of an instruction fetch, and that's what I'm looking for. And the value adjacent to mreg here where it says 0815 is the address that we're trying to capture, and both of those have to be true with the way I currently have the analyzer configured for it to be triggered. So in other words, it's triggering when we are starting to fetch the instruction at address 0815. However, if I change the trigger point and I now go to an address further on, so I know that 081D is the address immediately before the first subroutine jump, and I'll reboot the HP, and you can see that we are successfully jumping to that. Again, it's an instruction fetch from that address. However, if I change the trigger to Part20A, which is the following address. And if we look at the code, then where we're triggering on now, or trying to trigger, is the address after the jump to a subroutine. So in other words, we should get here once the subroutine returns. So again, I'll arm the analyzer, reboot the HP, and you can see that we don't successfully get to that point. Now I've decoded the instruction here because it is different from what's in the patent, and I know that that subroutine is located at an address of 1D55. That's in the instruction itself. That's how I determined what this address was. If I now try to trigger on that address a fetch of the instruction at the subroutine, so this is trying to fetch the first instruction in that subroutine that we're jumping to. First thing to note is that we successfully triggered, and it's the right address. Not only is it the right address, but the value underneath that, where it says 085A, is the correct value for the instruction at that address. So in other words, we have successfully jumped to the subroutine, so we know the microcode engine is capable of doing that, and we have also successfully read the instruction from ROM. I'll come back to that in a few minutes because there is an important point here. If we now scroll across through the code that we've captured, then we're in a subroutine. At some point we should return from the subroutine. If I keep going across, we'll see that this value F102 is a return from subroutine instruction. And if I go further across, the value above in the M register is the address that we're trying to read instructions from once we jump back. The 3FF address is the RAM location where we are storing the stack pointer, which is why it's reading that now. However, if you look at the value there, you'll see that the value it's reading from the stack pointer is 0002 and 0001, and that's incorrect. So what's happening then is when we load the value from there, we're loading a value of 4630. That's in hex. So in other words, the stack pointer is pointing us towards an address of 4630 when it tries to return. And then you can see the next instruction in the line above that, 4631, is the address that we jump to as part of the return. And again, that's correct as far as the microcode is concerned. So the microcode is doing what appears to be the right thing. It's trying to jump back from the subroutine, but it's jumping back to a ridiculous address. That address is way above the maximum ROM space in this machine, which is why you can see it's reading all Fs, and then it is now trying to execute the code there. So the program counter is counting up, but it's always loading FFFF because there is no ROM in that memory address. And I'm suspecting that ultimately it just wraps around to the beginning of the code and the machine effectively restarts itself. If I set the trigger on the analyzer again, you can see that this time it does run through and do something different. The problem is it hasn't initialized the machine properly, so it's doing something a bit weird. So that's as far as I've got with this particular fault finding. I've looked at many other things trying to resolve this. I did get the machine to return from the subroutine, and I did that by changing various components on the memory card. But I think the problem is there are so many failed components in the memory card that it's essentially hobbling along and it can't run effectively. Now the machine has had two memory cards in it, and neither one worked properly, which is why I'm suspicious about what's happened to this machine. It's very unusual to see quite so many failed devices on a single machine. So it looks like I have an issue with the RAM card, which is why the address that's being returned from the stack pointer location is incorrect. Either that or there's an issue with the memory addressing somewhere, but it does seem that the memory addressing is working, because we can successfully access the various locations, but I will be looking into that. Now, the only other thing that I'm going to try before that, in a previous video when I compared the code I'm putting into the ROM on this machine with the code in the emulator, there was a mismatch at the top of the file, and I said that the code was missing. It's not that it was really missing, but I got the data for my file by reading the ROM card, which is this card. And the issue with this machine is that, for whatever reason, I assume they just couldn't get enough space on that card. There is another small ROM card. Let's pop it out so we can have a quick look at it. And this contains the upper 512 bytes of the main ROM firmware. And in fact, this card contains the address 1D55, so when we're jumping to that subroutine, we're actually jumping here into this card. I'm not sure if that's got anything to do with it, because obviously I haven't been able to read this card, and it's entirely possible that the contents of this card in terms of the version of firmware are not entirely compatible with the firmware set that I currently have in the main ROM. But I don't have the version that matches what's in this card. So what I'll intend to do is bypass this card. I'm going to put the ROM that should be in this card into the EEPROM I'm using, and then essentially run all the ROM from this one chip. And it's not quite as easy as it sounds, because the address lines, or two of the address lines that are required to access this card, and in the memory space it sits above the address for this ROM, they're not brought out to the edge connector this card sits into, which is a bit of a pain. Otherwise I would have done that straight away. So what I'm going to do is make up a simple jumper that jumpers across from the required decoding pins on the card I've made to the edge connector this plugs into. So effectively I can simulate having this card in this ROM, and then I'll run it again and see if that improves things at all. But I suspect this is actually a RAM card issue, and the RAM card has failed. And that being the case, again, it takes me back to square one, where I'm not going to be able to get one of those as a replacement, and then the option I have is whether I go to the time and trouble of designing a replacement RAM card. But the expense of trying to repair this has already got rather high, so I'm a bit reluctant to do that. If you do have one of these and you would be interested in a replacement RAM card for your machine, then let me know, because if I can find an outlet for selling some bare cards, then it would offset the cost of developing them, and that would obviously allow me to continue repairing this machine, and hopefully allow other people to repair theirs if they have the same sort of problem. Okay, so that's where I am with the machine. I thought I'd do a quick update so you can see where we are. The ROM card's working, but I believe I now have a RAM card issue. Comments as ever are always welcome. One thing I would say is that my channel is not monetized. I don't make money from making these videos. I'm making them purely to try and help other people that are enthusiasts and are trying to resolve issues with machines they might have, or that are just interested in the topic. So if you feel compelled to leave a thumbs down, then please can you also leave a comment as to what you don't like in the video. That way I can work on improving them. I'm not saying I'll be able to accommodate everyone, but a thumbs down with no comment is not particularly useful. Okay, well, in the next video hopefully I'll be able to make some progress on trying to resolve exactly where the problem lies.